Hey guys, my name is Brandon Barty, and this is actually the first iteration of this thing that we are trying to create. Right now, it doesn't even have a name. The functional title is Pillars, because the whole concept is that I'm looking for the quote unquote pillars of our community to come in here and kind of tell their stories, tell a little bit about what has gotten them to where they are. Of course, that we don't necessarily just have a single definition of success here. So I'm talking to a wide range of people, and for the very first one, I can't think of somebody that I think would be more appropriate than my friend, mentor, Randy Smith. He's a county commissioner. He's a local minister. He's been a big influence in my life personally, and I'll tell a little bit of the story here in a second about that. But the big thing is that a lot of people, I feel like a lot of politicians, especially, they'll do it for their own legacy. Mm-hmm. They'll do it because they have some sort of something to prove, or they just get off on the power of it. I've never gotten that feeling from you, and I've from the very beginning, the very first time I met you, you were like, okay, how can I help? The very first, you were actually one of our first clients here in Pomeroy, and we'll talk about that more a little bit in a second, but. Yeah, so I've already given you an introduction, but hi, what is your name?
Randy Smith. You got it right.
Yeah, that's what's your middle name?
It's Scott.
Right. Hey, mine too.
No kidding.
Brandon Scott Barty.
Randy Scott Smith, yes.
That's awesome. See, we were destined to be friends.
That's it.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, Randy.
Well, like you said, I'm one of the county commissioners. Just started my second term, and it's been a very interesting, crazy, unpredictable last several years.
Yeah. So why did you decide to run for office the first time? Actually, before we go to that, what is a county commissioner? Because I'm assuming that at least half the people that are going to be listening to this have no idea. So
probably up that to at least 3/4 of the people that are going to listen that have no idea what a county commissioner is, and probably if you look it up. Go to the revised code, see what one is.
Yeah.
Doesn't even give you a small glimpse of what it is in Meigs County.
Can I try?
Sure.
Okay, so I have a little bit more insight, but this is still going to be dead wrong, I'm sure. So when I was growing up, I would have thought that a county commissioner is a lot like a mayor of a village. But I've realized through talking to you and talking to Mike and talking to Tim, it's actually a lot more administrative than that.
Yes.
There's very little actual what you would call quote unquote authority. Am I right?
That's right.
And a lot more of like making things happen and making sure that things. That's my very very loose definition, and and again, I'm sure I'm very wrong.
Most folks would either say that they would say it's comparable to a mayor, or they would think that you are essentially the governor of the county.
Yeah.
And every other elected official in the county serves as part of your cabinet.
Yeah. So that's not that?
No, not at all.
So what is a county commissioner then? I guess I should have asked you this before we started.
Okay, statutorily, I mean, what the revised code says, it's a pretty simple job. You're responsible for the county's operating budget. You're responsible for allocating the budget to every other office holder. Tell them how much they can spend.
Yeah.
And that's the majority of what the revised code says your responsibilities are, with the exception of appointing a few department heads.
Okay, so in practice, what is it then?
Juggling chainsaws.
How so?
Probably the best way to describe it. Probably why we're more unique than, say, a county the size of Franklin County. You still have 3 commissioners. But you would also have each commissioner would be assigned maybe 5 deputy clerks, and they would have a small support staff and administrative staff to work under them to take care of the day-to-day. So a commissioner's job there would be simply come to a board meeting once a week, approve the payment of the bills, address anything that might be on the agenda, and go home.
That's it, yeah.
Because revised code says that a county commissioner is actually a part-time job, and you're only required to work 8 hours every 90 days.
That's unbelievable. And there's a salary involved too, correct?
There is a salary. It's based on population.
I'm not going to ask what your salary is.
It's divided into 6 different classifications in the state based on population. So if you are the guy that comes in once a week, then you're free to maintain a full-time career doing something else.
Yeah,
and a lot of commissioners do.
So the very limited, the reason that I've always, for the most part, known that you guys weren't mayors is because my grandfather, Jim Barty, he's from the Gallia County area. He's actually from Kentucky, but anyway, he actually every weekday morning, he would meet his friends at McDonald's, and they would get together and complain about the commissioners. That's what they
That
did.
makes sense.
One of my favorite memories of him. My grandpa was a real spitfire, and one of my favorite memories of him was going around helping him put up political signs in October, and all they said was "Re-elect no one."
Yeah.
That was it. So like, the only things that I knew, I guess growing up, I thought the commissioners were these evil people. That, I guess that's not the best way to put it. I didn't think that they were intrinsically evil, but I always just heard commissioner and thought negative because of him.
I can absolutely agree with that and see where that comes from.
Yeah, and that was in a different county. Actually, I didn't move up here till I was about 16 years old, and I don't know much of the history of Meigs County government.
I think in the county, that stigma probably is very true. I think folks around here probably had the exact same idea.
You think so?
I guess the reason why I say that, 2000, I graduated from high school in 1997, so I'm not
Yeah, I was 10 years old.
as old as you may think.
So you graduated in 1997. I
1997.
graduated in 2006, so you were about 9 years older than me.
Yeah,
That's about how old I thought you were.
well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's a shame that you're that much younger than me, but hey. But in 2000, I was hired at the Job and Family Services office as a welfare fraud investigator.
Okay.
The Job and Family Services is one of the departments that rests underneath the umbrella of the county commissioners, mainly for the purpose of appointing a director. So when I started working at Job and Family Services, the commissioners, if they were ever referred to, it was bigger than the principal's office. It was, well, once the commissioners find out, or this has to be ran by the commissioners will never approve this. So you were given this idea that they were some big off-limits group that if you had to go there, look out, it's going to be bad. We definitely have changed that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and I don't. You might actually ask me to edit this out here in a bit. Do not look at us. Our wives are sitting over on the couch. They've refused to be on microphone, but they are determined to make us feel awkward.
We were doing so
this.
well until just now.
Hi, Raina. Hi, Beverly. What were we talking about?
The county commissioners being evil.
Yeah, I don't know. Where was it going?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are talking about how someone was hard to approach.
Oh, yeah. So that's one of the, and you're probably gonna ask me to edit this out here in just a second, but I joke around and say that you offer the commissioner on demand service because like in any time we're in the process of trying to negotiate a fairly complex set of real estate issues. Which I feel like we're in a flood town. I feel like is it complex? It's the first one I've ever done. Maybe this is like run of the mill stuff. But anyway, I've like sent you Facebook messages at like 11 o'clock at night and got an answer right back that is like, that's not even your job, but I feel like, you and honestly, I feel like the other two would be just the same way.
Yeah, they would be. Absolutely.
And I feel like growing up, especially, I guess the example I'll use is we got involved with a community organization called Imagine Pomeroy. And our first project was the mini park down here. And the other members of the board were talking about, okay, well, you've got to get past council and they did that same thing,
Right.
talking about like these people up on a hill that just passed down judgment, and we were so terrified of them. But it turns out they actually, even the quote unquote scary ones, and I'll say this right live, Ruth Spawn is one of my favorite people in the whole world, but I was terrified of her.
Rightfully so. She's a
And she can be scary, but
very intimidating lady.
she can be scary.
We love
but-
her too. She's
but,
great.
but you have to admit that she cares more about this town than 99.9%.
She does, absolutely.
But anyway, we were terrified to go and present the idea. I don't know why, but it ended up being amazing. They were like, "This is incredible." But I felt like I've gotten the same vibe from you and Tim and Mike. So, now that we've gotten past that, what was kind of the reason that you decided to get into politics in general? Was commissioner your first office?
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of big. I feel like most people will go for something smaller first.
And you're not the first person that has suggested or said that. I have, at the time we were living in the county, so the only thing I had that could have been a possibility would have been township trustee, and those guys work way too hard for me to have considered that. When you're talking about guys there that get the 2 o'clock in the morning phone call that there's a tree down in the road in the middle of a snowstorm,
Yeah.
and they've got to go take care of it. So township trustee would have never been anything that would have crossed my mind. Probably my experience with Job and Family Services, knowing that what we did there, what was approved, what wasn't approved, our day-to-day was affected by this group, this elite group that was the county commissioners,
Mm-hmm.
probably is what turned me on to more, okay, is that all they do? What else are they responsible for, and are we getting the most that we can out of this group of people?
Mm-hmm.
And, all due respect to those that have served before me, definitely did not feel like that was the case.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna go into
Yeah.
any detail because
Right.
I don't want to like sling mud on anybody. But I think that's just kind of the way that things work.
Yeah.
So just briefly tell me about how long have you been? Is this your fourth year? Right? How long are the terms?
They're 4-year terms.
Okay, so this is your fifth year. Then.
I'm in starting my 5th year.
Okay, so like
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that were important to you going into it? First of all, like what were some goals that you had when you first got elected?
It's amazing that all these questions that you're going to ask pertaining to my job the answers will sound like a re-election speech. And I have absolutely no intentions on making them sound that way. I come from a law enforcement background.
Yeah.
So when I graduated from high school, went straight into police science, ended up finishing it early by going into the police academy. So my exposure to public service first was a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And village police officers, they don't answer to the commissioners. There's no communication between the commissioners or the village police departments. But then I got a commission at the sheriff's department just as something else to do while maintaining that job in a village. And then ended up at the welfare office as an investigator.
Yeah.
That's when I started getting exposed to things that I guess you would rather not know that are going on in your hometown.
Yeah.
And then when you start to develop that mind that, is this honestly the best that we can do? Because if this is the best we can do and we're putting out all the effort and this is the best we can do, then fine. But is there any way to make this better? And I was coming up with a lot of things that, yes, absolutely, we could do it better.
Yeah.
And see, she's going to have to leave. She's keeps looking at me. I enjoyed my job at Job and Family Services. I love being a fraud investigator. I mean, you'll find, especially if you interview or talk to any other police officers, there's a subculture there. The mind is the same.
By the way, I'm not using the
He's
restroom.
not in the restroom.
I'm pouring a glass of wine right now. But go ahead, sorry.
There's a subculture there, and I think, especially here, most of the folks who serve in law enforcement are doing it because they think they can make a difference. It's not for the money. It's certainly not that.
I have enough friends that are police officers that I know that nobody in Meigs County is in law enforcement for the money.
No.
I can say that with beyond a shadow of a doubt.
The sheriff isn't even in it for money.
No.
Trust me. But there is a group in that law enforcement subculture that they are absolutely driven by the people they serve, and that's a calling or not.
Yeah.
I think that's how you end up with people that shouldn't be in those fields.
Yeah.
If somebody has a servant's heart, then they're going to be a servant regardless of what they're doing.
Yeah.
But you know it when someone's doing public service and they have that servant's heart, and that's what I always desired to be. Was public service of some sort.
Yeah.
Probably means I should have had my head examined because public service is a weird.
I think you're crazy.
Yeah, it is an interesting world.
I think that in this, especially in the current political climate, not talking about our president because
Sure.
because people are going to take this like that.
Right.
I have a very secret view of our current president that nobody knows. I think actually and
Yeah.
Raina knows, and our close friends know, but no one else will ever know whether I love our current president or I can't stand him. But that's not what this is about.
Right.
But I do feel like a lot of people, regardless of whether or not it's true, view politicians in such a way that they're either power hungry or they have their own ulterior motives. And I do feel like, especially on the national level, you see that a lot.
I actually had somebody tell me, and I wish I could remember who it was, because it was probably what they were telling me was contradictive to everything I believed that was possible out of a politician, but it probably opened my eyes more to the idea of being in politics than anything else I'd heard. And it was, if you're not corrupt going in, you will be coming out.
Yeah.
And this was somebody that knew me very well. And I would certainly like to think that at no point in my life did I ever give anybody the idea that I have the potential of being corrupt. And I thought, wow, even on the local level,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to go in here and think I can make a difference and this is how I'm going to do it without getting wrapped up into something that was going to take me down or make the community worse off than it was when I started.
Yeah.
You can prove those people wrong. You
Yeah.
absolutely can. And we've done that just by literally practicing what we preach, and we have hope And Mike and Tim are great. I couldn't imagine working without them.
Yeah.
We mesh very well together.
Yeah, I obviously know you better than the other two, but my very limited experience with Mr. Bartram and Mr. Ely, Tim came to a historical society meeting I was at, and he just essentially just gave like the county update.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was something about the enthusiasm and the sincerity in which he gave that you could tell that unlike the politicians that we see on TV,
Right.
that this man actually cared. And the quote unquote bragging he was doing on the three of you, it wasn't bragging. It was, guys, listen, things are getting better.
Right.
You have reason to be optimistic. And I've only lived in Meigs County for only about 12 years. As an adult, I've lived here my entire adult life. I can honestly say that things have gotten better here since in the last 5 years. 100%.
There's a perfect formula to making that happen, and we are probably the smallest factor in that.
Oh, yeah.
We are the smallest factor in that. The community that truly that we are blessed to live in, those people are the ones that make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
There are our merchants in our community. There are families that have been around for generations that have been waiting for the opportunity to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, I have an idea, or hey, can you get behind this?
Yeah.
They're the driving force behind what we're seeing in economic development, job creation, just making things cleaner and nicer.
Okay, so I think I'm going to interject here and tell a little story about you personally, and also Mike too. Actually,
Sure.
I've never had the same experience with Tim, but I'm sure that I would. So when we first came to Pomeroy, we came on the back of a lot of advice not to come to Pomeroy. And if anybody's listening to this that's not from Meigs County, Pomeroy has seen better days town right on the Ohio River. Lots of drugs. Maybe not quite so much right here in town, but I think that's a pretty fair thing
Oh yeah,
to say.
absolutely. Countywide, yeah, certainly.
Lots of drugs, lots of unemployment, and lots of the things that you see plaguing small town America. Slow economic environment, not a lot of foot traffic. Admittedly, not the greatest place to start a business. Then on top of all of that, you throw in the fact that every 5 to 6 years on average, we get a big flood.
Yep.
And in addition to all of that, you have the flood insurance, which I'm going to actually stop. I'm going to cut myself off there because that's what the rest of this thing is going to be about if I keep on going. Pomeroy is not the greatest place to be in business. However, you have Eloise Strenner, Bobby Carr, Paige Cleek. You have several people here, Mark Porter, who have not only made it work, they have built incredibly large, quote unquote, small businesses.
Right.
When Eloise has an event, she has a liner on the block.
Right.
Like when we do a lot of times, and I'll say this, like a lot of times that when we do like whether it be a free or a paid event, we still we're blown away by the community support that we receive. But the point is that coming into town, everyone told us that we couldn't do it. Everyone said,
I can believe that.
Everyone said that you'll be closed in 6 months if you open a store down there. Don't do it. Go to Parkersburg or to Athens. And I'm glad I didn't listen, because what happened was probably about a month in, was it your family pictures?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we first met on the levee during like the polar plunge, if I recall.
Yep, that's right.
And I didn't know who you were. I knew you were Randy.
I was there for moral support.
Yeah.
By the way, I did not jump in the river.
I didn't either. And anyway, we did your family pictures, and it was cool, and I feel like we did a pretty good job, and you guys spent some money with us, which of course I appreciate. But during the course of that, I realized, okay, this is one of the 3 county commissioners. So I kind of got the context of who you were. And after our business was completed, we spent probably 2 hours where you were just asking us legitimate questions about like, okay, so what can I do? So I said, and I told you, like, yeah, we're here, we're new, we're 2 months in, we have no idea if this is going to work. And you weren't like, oh, well, yeah, here, well, I'm up for re-election next year. There was never any of that. It was like, okay, what can we do?
Yep.
And even right now, we're in a place where our business has grown so immensely. By the way, we are school photographers and wedding and senior portrait photographers, but the school side of it's what's growing. And even right now, I've had several late night conversations with you, and and I feel like I never would have in a million years dreamed that an elected official would be that personally invested with us. And I can't help
I
but
appreciate that, but it's sad to think that that's true.
yeah, I can't help but think that if you're doing this for us, that you have to be doing it for other people.
Yes.
And it's having people like you and like Mike and like Tim in the community that are kind of like serving almost as like an accelerant, you know, like obviously it's like you said, it is the small business owners that are actually making things happen.
That's right.
But like you guys you're dedicated to being that accelerant on top of it. And,
Yes.
and I feel like, you know, we should maybe change topic because this is starting to sound like re-election.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate truth when you start talking about.
But it's true. And that's very much the case. But
We're trying to, maybe I can sum it up like this, and maybe we could move on to something else, but maybe not. Probably the biggest plague that has affected Meigs County, at least in my adult life.
yeah.
Yes, the drug issues are bad. Crime's probably leveled off. If you look at crime rate growth versus the
Yep.
drug epidemic, it's probably where it needs to be as far as on that level. It's
By the way, I will interject here right now. I will say that we do live in a very safe place.
Absolutely.
Statistically, I feel safer here than I do when I'm traveling.
oh, absolutely.
Even though there are drugs here, I don't feel like I'm ever in personal danger. I will
No,
say
we
that.
get branded with when you say drug problem, you get branded in that Appalachian region that with what went on in Ironton, and everybody just wants to make that inclusive, like it's on every street corner, and that's obviously not the case.
And I will interject here and say this, like. First of all, those drug addicts, quote unquote, they're people too, and that sounds
Absolutely.
super cliche. But I will tell you this: as long as you mind your own business, you're gonna be fine.
Yes, absolutely.
Regardless, even if like you live right next to a drug dealer, just don't take pictures of him handing envelopes into a car.
Yeah,
I mean, if you feel the need, obviously call the police.
right.
That's what you,
Yeah, definitely do that.
that's what you should do. But don't be out there with your long lens, and you're gonna be fine. Like there's no safety issue here. I've never felt. I walk home at night from my friend's house frequently. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, this will sound about as cliche and a plug for law enforcement as I can make it, but I've had the absolute pleasure of working with a lot of officers. Some of the guys here, I don't even know them.
Yeah.
Because as we discussed ages a little while ago,
Yeah.
I am officially one of the old guys that I remember when I was coming out of the academy.
You're still in your 30s, right?
Barely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm barely in my 20s.
Barely in his 20s.
Hey, I still feel like I'm 16 here. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I hope you do when you're 40. I really do. We have great law enforcement, dedicated people that I think there's been a culture shift there too. They recognize addiction for what it is.
Yeah.
So it's not just necessarily about let's just try to wrest our way out of it. There's a shift in the law enforcement community. There's a shift in the political community.
Yeah.
And the whole, I guess, what point I started to make earlier, why you can look at Meigs County and make that comment that most folks have always made. They're not crunchy.
No.
I can't do it. My wife's telling me I must. So I'll take the smallest one since I had the biggest steak. Then you're going to hear me chew while I'm trying to talk. Let me wait.
All
And then I'll
right.
eat it.
Go ahead and make your point, and then I'll talk.
Apathy just about murdered Meigs County. That's where, I mean, we talk about that a lot in our office. Folks at some point, and it was probably near the time the coal mines closed, that's when things were great in Meigs County. Rainbow, clear sky every day because the coal mines were open, and the coal mines did a great job making people a good living, and it was a huge industry here. When they closed, it was like that was the last nail in the coffin for Meigs County.
Yeah.
And it terrified people. And then you started seeing those small businesses out towards the coal mines slowly close down the closer they were to Pomeroy. And things were just terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually at one point had a coal mining class at Meigs High School that was training you for the coal mines to get you ready for when you graduated so you could follow in line with your dad.
So again, I didn't move here till high school. What
Yeah.
what decade are we talking about right now?
It was gone when I started in high school in 93.
Okay, so we're talking like the 80s was the end of the...
Probably late 80s.
Okay.
Maybe even the first part of the 90s.
Okay.
I know at some point, but there was a school,
Yeah.
classes in the vocational school at the high school was teaching people how to go into the coal mines. And when that stopped, that terrified people
Yeah.
because it was, what are we going to replace that with?
Yeah.
Well, those were good paying jobs and with good benefits. There was nothing on the horizon that they were going to replace that with.
Yeah.
So immediately it just became apathy set in that this is as good. We had it as good as it's ever going to get. It's
Yeah.
never going to get any better.
Mm-hmm.
People were satisfied with mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you were leaving me alone, I was going to leave you alone.
Yeah.
And I would try to find some place to go to work outside the county, go spend my money outside the county, and only come here when it got dark so I can go to sleep
Yeah.
and be gone before the sun rose in the morning.
Yeah.
And I think that stuck this county in a ditch for years.
Mm-hmm.
We just decided not to care about it anymore.
Yeah.
We were satisfied with the status quo.
I'm not gonna lie. When I graduated high school, I went to school in Dallas. That's where I met my wife. So I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that I forgot or that I regret going to Dallas. But almost immediately after I got back from school, I moved to DC because it's one of the DC is like the highest income earning. I'm thinking I'm self-employed. I want to go to where the highest earners are. And I did. As a 22-year-old, I made really good money out there. But you know what? And this is going to step on the toes of anybody from DC that's listening, but I feel like when you're taking an average of the people in DC compared to people here, everyone out there is miserable. They might be making a bunch of money. They might be driving a BMW, but they're miserable. And they don't talk to each other. And if you strike up a conversation with the cashier at Walmart, well, people don't go to Walmart out there. At Target, people, if you strike up a conversation with the cashier at Target, then they're gonna like look at you like, what the hell are you doing?
You're being nice to me. Something must be wrong.
Yeah, you must want something, and you don't have that here. And we came back here and we decided to make it work. And this is actually a perfect segue into the first thing that I was going to ask you, and that is that you said that you kind of got into politics, and I'm sure that's probably a dirty word in your mind, but
Yes.
You got into politics because you legitimately believe that you could make a difference.
Yes.
Now, I feel like the vast majority of us, and this isn't a flaw. I'm not disparaging anyone that thinks this, but I feel like the vast majority of people that come out of high school, they believe that life is the way it is, and that life is going to be the way it is, and that life happens to them.
Yes.
And I can tell by the way that you talk that you believe the opposite, just like I do.
Absolutely.
And that is that we happen to life.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
Absolutely. That's a good word.
all religion aside,
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that we have near complete control of our own lives.
Sure.
The exceptions, of course, being getting diagnosed with cancer young.
Right.
The exceptions being things like getting attacked
Right.
or being abused. We obviously have no control over that. But outside of those types of circumstances, I do believe that we have near autonomous control over the outcomes of our own lives.
I believe that. Absolutely.
And again, I'm going to repeat this. I don't think that that's the case for people. There are a minority of people who legitimately have excuses for,
Sure. Yeah. I got that.
but I'm talking about the average person.
Average person.
I feel like I would be a terrible employee. Raina and Raina would be a fantastic employee because she's fantastic at everything, but I would be terrible. And I got to looking through the possible degrees. I'm a college dropout. I am not telling your children to drop out of college, but I am. I'm a college dropout because I realized halfway through that I wasn't suited for any of this.
Sure.
And I can't remember who said it, but it said if you can't find a good job, create one. And
Yep.
and I actually took that to heart, and that's how we got where we are. But I feel like, and I believe that we happen to life, and I believe that if something isn't working for you, that it's up to you. You're the only person in the world that can change
That's
it.
absolutely true. I like that. We happen to life. That's cool.
That's not mine. I think
That's still cool.
Got it online.
Haven't seen that before. That's cool.
But like so let's kind of shift in here because
Okay.
the whole purpose of this is, like this is going to be listened to hopefully, but by a large range of age groups and in different places. But the hope is that Raina and I work with children a lot. The vast majority of which are 17-year-olds getting ready to go into high school. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to disparage the education system. But I do know that there are certain things that I wish that high school would have taught me.
Oh, yeah.
Things that, like, I'm not gonna say that math and science and history aren't important. In fact, I continuously read and watch documentaries. I'm kind of a nerd. I love that kind of thing. But I do kind of wish, I guess, that they would have maybe prepared me a little bit better for the more practical things in life.
Yeah, and I think it probably, at least the educators that I know, would probably almost agree with you that they wish they had that
Yeah.
ability to do that.
So even on the administrative level,
Yeah.
school boards and superintendents, I
Yeah.
realized that like a lot of the restrictions come down from the state
Right.
or even the federal level, as
Right.
far as I understand. Just simple things like compound interest.
Right.
The concept of compound interest, it changed my life once I realized exactly what 22% credit card interest actually
Meant
was.
what it meant. That's right.
And more specifically, you hear all these rich white guys talking about, well, you can make 9% on your investments, and I'm thinking, oh, screw that, 9%
Right.
isn't worth not having access to that money. But then you kind of remember that 9% actually is, going to double, triple, or even
Right.
quadruple your. Another time for all of that. But like
I
there's
agree. I actually told that we were talking about at work today about what was the most beneficial class that you had in high school.
yeah,
My high school career was kind of strange. I grew up a very smart kid,
yeah,
a very supportive mother. So I say supportive, and that was a homework comes first type
Yeah.
thing. She wanted us to be smart. So,
I did too. I had
And it
good,
was-
I
it
had
was-
good parents.
and I was thankfully one of those people that didn't struggle too much, didn't have to study a whole lot. I just could do the work, and it was great.
Yeah,
So I took the first 2 years of high school and college prep. Hated I hated every minute of it.
yeah,
I'm like, wait a minute, I get to college, I'm going to be doing this every day. Why am I spending the last 4 years of my high school career, or the 4 years of my high school career, just trying to what?
yeah,
Keep a high grade point average and prove to my buddy in the next row that I could do a better job on a test than him.
Yeah.
I hated it. So I spent my junior and senior year in electronics, which proved to be was a great class. Loved learning that. Most of it's all based on theory, so you actually had to
Yeah.
use your brain and you could use your hands a little bit. So it made
it's kind of almost like a mini trade school.
yeah, it's exactly what it was. I mean,
Yeah.
the school is famous for its vocational classes, but it was something different, and it
Makes
it-
high school, correct?
right.
That's
Yeah.
good. I know you're not talking about Eastern.
No,
which
we
is
got
where I
we,
went. So.
no, we got some of your guys and some of the guys from Southern come to our vocational school, but it was challenging. So I thought I knew when by the time I was a sophomore for sure that I would be in some type of public service.
Yeah,
So I knew there was nothing at the high school that was going to prepare me for that. So I thought I'm either going to spend another 2 years in college prep, or I'm going to do something at least to entertain me for 2 years. So I took electronics.
yeah,
It helped me for a few years after I graduated, when things could actually be repaired by hand. If your TV broke,
yeah.
now you just throw them away and buy a new one.
Of course.
We were right on the threshold of major technology shift. So most of the things that we learned are obsolete now. But I was thinking about what did I benefit from the 4 years of high school class that was taught to me that gave me a skill that I use every day:
Yeah.
typing.
Really?
Typing became the most beneficial class I took in high school.
Really?
I think I was one of 2 boys in my typing class.
I never took it, and I'm a terrible typer.
I'm a fantastic typer.
It's funny because we're professional photographers, but I often say that I write for a living.
It's great.
And
It's
I-
not great. It's
it-
2017.
It's true though.
Yeah.
Like social media, blog posts, writing copy, which for people that don't know what that is, that's sales writing, persuasive writing
Sure.
is what that would have been called in school. But I'm a professional writer, and I'm terrible at typing.
Well, if you've ever seen my handwriting, you would see the exact opposites.
I
of me.
haven't even seen my own handwriting in several years.
I got you.
But
But at least in typing was something. It was practical. It taught you something. I totally agree. There's way too many things that could be taught in school that would be more preparatory. You
Yeah.
want a student to go beyond high school,
for sure.
whether it's a military college, whatever. But typing was practical, and it's helped me out. I look at, math is good.
Of course.
But probably when I was a freshman in high school, I probably thought if I borrow $100
Uh-huh.
and it's 22% interest,
Yes.
that means that I'm just going to have to pay back $122.
That's not even remotely
Not how it
that
works.
works.
Right? Not how it works.
I mean, and actually, in all reality, that means you're going to be paying back $1,500.
Right.
If you just make the minimum payments.
Right.
At another time. Now we're going to have Paul Reed on here. In,
Oh, cool.
In the next couple of weeks, and we're
Pay
going to talk.
attention to Paul when he's on here, because
Yeah.
it'll help you understand some things.
Paul is the world's nicest banker. I think anyone who's ever met Paul can say that. But let's move on here for a second. But one thing that I will say, that like And again, I do not want this to sound like we're disparaging the education system. I do think that our education system is flawed, but I don't think that's even remotely the problem of our local teachers or administrators.
Right. Absolutely not. Yeah.
I know so many teachers that spend hours and hours and hours and hours after they're being paid
And their own money.
in their own money to do things. So that's not at all what I'm saying. But what is something that you would tell your own kid upon graduating from high school that you feel like they're not currently being taught? Like, well, just one thing. Pick it out. I know you've probably had these conversations with your daughter.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
not going to mention her by name here for obvious reasons, but like what is just pull something out of a hat, something that you have mentioned to her.
I actually can remember the first time that I want you to get on my phone and try to look this up so I don't misquote it.
Yeah, you're fine.
I can remember one of the strange hobbies that we had when I was a kid, especially with my twin brother. We would memorize movies.
Mm-hmm. Really?
How poor of a childhood is that when you spend time memorizing movies? But I've become one of those people that you can ask me something, or I'll be in conversation with you and quote a movie line,
Yeah.
thinking that you have seen the movie and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Getting
Chances are you have no idea.
Yeah, while you're looking at that up, I'm going to pour another glass of wine. This is not me using the bathroom again.
If you could hear this in these headsets, it sounds like we're standing outside of a bathroom door.
Oh, no, they can hear it. Everybody that's listening to this can hear this. That is disturbing how much that sounds like sounding right outside of a bathroom door.
And we were watching, I'm a big Rocky fan.
Yeah.
Growing up in my home, you pretty much had to be. Mom was a big Rocky fan. And there's a quote in the Rocky Balboa movie, which is one of the later movies that came out early 2010, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe you've never seen it before, but I've actually used this quote from a movie of all things, a fictional story about a boxer. You know, it's just as fake as any other movie that you'd be interested in. And I've actually used this quote
Yeah.
in sermons
Really?
and preached on it just simply because it is probably.
By the way, everybody, Randy is also a minister.
Yeah, why not?
Trinity, I don't know the full name.
Trinity Congregational Church here in
It's right
Pomeroy.
around the corner here. But
Yep.
anyway, that's go ahead.
And I'll plug the folks at Mount Union Baptist Church, way out on the west end of the county, almost to Albany. Pastor there on Sunday nights. I actually did a sermon about this quote from Rocky.
Yeah.
It was on TV, I don't know, a few months ago. And we have DVR, so of course I stopped it, rewound it,
course.
and let her listen to it again. I'm like, listen to the advice that Rocky is giving his son.
Yeah.
If you can look past its fact that it's Rocky and not make fun of it,
Yeah.
listen to what Rocky is telling his son. And with my experience, and there's things that we haven't talked about or you haven't asked about my past from childhood leading into adulthood and what drove me to do what I do. This is probably, as cliche as it is, coming from Rocky,
Yeah.
is probably the best advice that I've ever given my kid who's on her way to college in the fall. So Rocky's addressing his adult son.
Yeah.
He's in his early 20s, and he says this: "Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it'll beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life.
Yeah.
But it ain't about how hard you get hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out there and get what you're worth, but you got to be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. And boy, I'll tell you what, if you're not careful around here, you can just take a look around you and think, well, this is it for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is as good as I can get it. This is the best my life's going to be.
I felt that way.
And if you don't snap out of it, it'll eat you alive.
Absolutely.
And it's sad to say that, but I think that's where apathy kicks in. When I worked at Job and Family Services, I can remember I graduated in 97, started working there in 2000.
Yeah.
3 years outside of high school. The very first fraud case that I was assigned to
Yeah.
was somebody I graduated from high school with. And we only been out of high school 3 years.
Wow.
And the very first fraud case that was referred to me was somebody that I used to sit beside in class. And when I finally got done with the case and brought him in for the first interview, the only thing I could think of was I just wanted to look at him and say, did you give up already?
Wow.
This is where, we've only been out 3 years. I feel like I could turn around and go to high school tomorrow and not forget and have forgotten anything that I could go back to class. Mm-hmm. It only been that short a time. And the same thing happened in law enforcement. We were going to houses and arresting people that we had just went to class with a few years before.
Yeah.
And people were so quick to just fall victim of their circumstances and let it keep them down. And we try to have the most encouraging household that we can for all of our kids.
Yeah.
And that is so incredibly important. And again, that sounds cliche, but it is an absolute truth. And dealing with some of the folks that I've dealt with in my other positions with the county through the welfare officer and law enforcement, kids are funny. It doesn't matter what they have. It doesn't matter if they're living in a big house. It doesn't even matter if they're eating 3 meals a day. None of that matters. What matters to them is are they loved and supported. And that goes so far. And if they're not, at some point, they're going to make the decision to be a victim of their circumstance or rise above it. And again, that sounds cliche. It's like all those things that
That's
all those bumper stickers or those things you see on T-shirts or the things you hear in movies that are catchy, they're really true when you dissect them, and it is really what it takes.
I mean, they're cliches for a reason. I mean, they became common wisdom for a reason. And let's actually stop and dwell on that for a second. You talked about, like, if you're not, let's say that people are listening to this that aren't necessarily from the most nurturing backgrounds, and everybody's different. Like I was lucky enough that my parents were not entrepreneurs. My parents, I can't actually think, with the exception of my grandfather on my mother's side, I can't think of a single small business owner in my family actually. But what I did have was parents that were supportive of me, and parents supportive of like my ideas and my dreams and all of that things. But you said that, like, if you don't do that, that you're going to have kids that are just a victim of their circumstance. And I feel like what we were talking about earlier, either life happens to you or you happen to life.
Yep.
What do you think the biggest difference is between people of the first belief versus the second? And like, I think that I guess if I could throw out a personal example would be that, somebody who's complaining about being laid off. Awful thing to have happen to you and your family.
Yep.
You get a job and they say that as long as you are providing us with this value, we are going to keep you fed. We're going to keep your families. And then it doesn't happen. You get laid off and that goes away. But someone who believes that they happen to life view that incredibly differently than someone that believes that life happens to them, that they are a victim of life, that life is constantly beating them down. How would you try to communicate that to your daughter? By the way, he has 3 sons too.
Yeah.
No, the daughter is actually getting ready to enter adulthood, so that's why we're kind of keep on hitting on this. But
Do you realize I have a child in practically every phase of life that you can have it right now?
how old is your youngest? 5?
6. Yeah, 6. From 6.
You don't have one
to
in adulthood
17.
yet.
No.
So like, it's like, what would you? What's something that you would tell her to there's nothing you can do to ensure to kind of help encourage her to become part of the more empowered. Which I've met her, and I know that she's already there. I know that she's going to be fantastic in life. I sound like our president right now.
Yeah.
I feel like that word has a
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
She's going to do great things. It's going to be great. Yeah.
But like but seriously, like, what is something that you would tell her that would be sure to kind of ensure that she would be?
As crazy as this sounds, one of the things, and it's like watching other people with their kids, and I've been fortunate to be in positions to watch not so great parenting, just in social work and law enforcement. And I think about, I've come out of houses before and scratched my head and wonder, okay, can't take them all home. You can't make it better for all of them, but what chance does that kid have in that environment?
Yeah.
And I've been pretty open, especially with her at her age, to give her a glimpse of what other folks are dealing with, what other kids her age, people she's eating lunch with in the high school, what they're dealing with versus what she deals with.
Yeah.
In a hopes that you don't want to try to encourage anything that sounds like you have it better than somebody, but the idea that There are folks that are dealing with the same studying requirements, the same test taking requirements, the same hours, doing all those things that you're dealing with, and they're not going to a supportive home when they leave school. They're not waking up in a supportive environment. They don't have people that care about their future, and try to get her to see it from that perspective. I've shared a lot of stories. I have had an interesting life, an interesting childhood, and can tell her and have told her on several occasions right here was one why that I faced. And this is the decision I decided to make and went this way. Let's look at it for a second, see if I'd have went that way. And broke it down and told her on several occasions of where I went in spite of where the world in my life was telling me this is where you'll probably end up. And I've almost quizzed her. Okay, so if I would have taken the other route, where would I have ended up? And if she can look me dead in the eye and say, well, this is where you would have ended up and been right, teachable moment.
Yeah.
I can say, okay. So when you get to that point, or if you're faced with that point, what kind of decision are you going to make? And we all want our kids to do better than we did, and we want them to have a better life than we have. But you can be real, that can become overbearing really quick.
Yeah.
Because then you start shoving goals on them that they're not making for themselves. You start living through them, and that happens way too much. When I say I want my kids to have it better than me, I just want them to get it earlier than me.
Yeah.
You know, I spent a lot of time feeling sorry for myself as a kid because of the things that we were dealing with growing up, and know that if I would have started looking at my future a little more seriously earlier, then either it wouldn't have taken as long to get there, or what did I miss out on because I spent so much time feeling sorry for myself. So that's what I try not to be overbearing, because overbearing parents seem to have the exact opposite effect on their kids that they want. But she probably knows the ins and outs of every story that I have to tell as a teen, especially, and the decisions that I've made. But you got to figure out a way to do it that doesn't sound like you're trying to dictate or trying to lord over their lives. Parents have a tendency to forget that they were once teenagers.
So is it okay if I ask you to tell me one of those stories?
Yeah.
Do you have one ready to go, or do you want me to talk a little bit?
Talk a little bit. Give me a second to think.
Okay, so
I got one, but keep talking.
Okay, well, I was just going to talk for a second about my own parents and my own upbringing. My parents were both very supportive, but I have a fairly severe learning disability. I don't even know if you know this about me.
Yeah, you'd never know that.
My attention span is that of a gnat.
Okay.
I am incredibly. I have reading problems. I was never diagnosed with dyslexia, but I imagine if I went to a psychologist now, they would say so. Going into my freshman year, I had a 1.3 GPA, so I wasn't failing, but basically not. Ended up graduating with a 3.8.
Cool.
Fourth in my class, which most classes you can't graduate fourth in your class with a 3.8. But
that's awesome.
And I really do attribute that to my parents, and like, even though they weren't necessarily small business owners, I think that they definitely supported me in everything that I had.
Sure.
But one thing that I will say is that, like, you know, to anybody listening to this, especially if you are that 16 or 17-year-old, just for a second, forget everything that your guidance counselor has told you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If you don't have super supportive parents, just for a second, forget everything they've told you.
Yeah.
Forget everything your teachers have told you. If you're a quote-unquote bad student, because I was, I'm not going to get into too many details right now. I'm sure I will in the future, but forget everything that everyone has said, and even if you had good parents and good teachers, but and just for a second, think about the fact that nothing that anybody has said has any actual weight on your future.
Absolutely.
And I personally have completely gone off script. And if I were to, and I know this is just a stall while you're thinking of your story, but if I were to try to communicate anything right now, it would be exactly that, and that is that your life is a blank slate. Your destiny is not already written. You are the only person that's going to write that, and it's completely up to you.
Yeah, that sounds like cliches that you're talking
does.
about, right? But it's so incredibly true.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just those phrases are so worn out, people just don't believe them anymore. But you're right. Matter of fact, New Year's sermon for 2017. Started that out with we have just flipped the cover open on a blank 365-day book that you get to write. Every page is blank. Sounds like a cheeky thing that you would say to a high school kid, but it is absolutely true. And if you miss a day, if there's something that you should have done different or should have done better, don't forget that tomorrow's different, and you can absolutely start that fresh again.
Yeah.
Well, when I say I have some stories, I mean, for those folks that, well, I guess it's funny to think that when I first became a police officer, there were, I noticed a number of folks locally that watched me grow up. I lived in Meigs County, have lived in Meigs County my whole life, with the exception of 2 years.
Yeah.
7th and 8th grade year, we lived in Moorhead, Kentucky.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Did you hear that, Raina? He lived in Moorhead, Kentucky for a while. Yeah, my wife's from the Lake Cumberland area, but anyway, go ahead.
7th and 8th grade year. 7th and 8th grade, yeah. Lived in Moorhead.
I liked Moorhead. I only ever drove through it, but I think it's a cute little.
Beautiful town.
But anyway, sorry.
So lived here my whole life, and when I became a police officer, I guarantee you there were folks immediately that thought, how in the world can Randy Smith be a police officer? Didn't think I was that bad growing up, but there were folks that certainly questioned it. Even funnier, when I got out of ministry school and started pastoring churches, there are folks, and I've been in ministry for 5 years.
Yeah.
And there are folks that you can find today that still have an issue with the fact that I'm preaching churches. So I haven't always been straight-laced, maybe. So 4th grade, in the 4th grade. So my parents were divorced when I was a second grader. So that was, 7, 8 years old. They divorced. I am what I like to consider a proud member of Generation X. And if you look at Generation X and how we got our name and what we were supposed to be responsible for, our generation was going to destroy the world.
Oh yeah. See, when I think of Gen X, I just think you're bad with computers. That's the only.
Well, it's
thing
only
I
because
think
we had two days of experience with them before we stepped into adulthood. But we are proud members of Generation X. Our generation was famous for being brought up in split homes. That was one of the characteristics of a Generation Xer, is you probably came from a divorced home, and I was one of them. And then somehow we were going to destroy the world.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
I'm a millennial. We're going to destroy the world too.
I have. I just won't comment about that. It's okay. We all can't be perfect. But we did. I don't want to paint the picture that we grew up hard, because that's not fair. There are people that certainly grew up a lot harder than we did. But coming from a divorced home in the 80s wasn't easy. I think, and I've never asked this question, but I think my mom's whole idea, as she saw her life unfolding, was that she would be able to be a housewife, raise kids. Dad had a decent job, and they were going to be the white picket fence family, and of course that didn't happen. I certainly give my mother as much credit as possible, and I could never scratch the surface on how supportive and how just flat awesome she is. Raising 3 boys on her own could not have been easy. And we have 4 kids, and my wife and I are very active parents, and it's exhausting. So I can't imagine one person doing that on their own. We have a relationship with Dad. I don't want to paint the picture as if he was just a non-existent father, but it was your typical every other weekend visitation with Dad type thing. So Mom spent basically her whole life raising kids and trying to do it in a way that not only provided support at home and support with school, those types of things, but also she had to work financially support us. And there were most of the time that I can remember that we were growing up, she would work 2 to 3 jobs. That's just the way it had to be.
Yeah.
But rather than fall victim to her circumstances, she just worked through it. And still, and I never had to worry. She never had to worry about preaching that to us, that I hope you appreciate what I'm doing. You just did, because you knew what she was sacrificing to pull that off. She got remarried when we were in the 4th grade.
Yeah.
to a guy that lived here in the county, but we didn't know. It was somebody she met through a mutual friend. They ended up getting married before we were out of the fourth grade, but I will say that their relationship allowed me to meet my current wife. We met in grade school. We were boyfriend and girlfriend in the sixth grade. Even.
Really?
Yeah. So that, obviously there's a little cute story as to how we met in grade school, but they got married. We lived. They lived together in the county for a year. Actually, not quite 2 years, and then we ended up moving to Kentucky. And it was definitely one of those made-for-TV movie type things. You had this idea that, okay, this is cool. This is a father figure that's in my life every day, not waiting one weekend every 2 weeks. He's here every day. We went hunting, we went fishing, that kind of thing. So you thought life was kind of leveling out at that point. And then once we moved from here to Kentucky, where he was from, where he was comfortable from, life changed big time. Then it was kind of the after school special. You learn who this guy is.
Yeah.
The things that he would he pretty much left us alone. He had kids, and we kind of occupied each other. So
Yeah.
he left us alone. He was very terrible to my mom.
Yeah.
And so you see that, and that's one example that I'll give my kid. I'm like, okay, there's my first crossroad. How do I handle this? I've been taken away from everything that's familiar to me. New school, new kid. We're from Ohio. This is Kentucky. They love to pick on you.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just that was
those
the
people
culture.
from Kentucky are awful. So
Yeah, I don't mean that. Oh, I see why you said that. I see why. But I once we got down there, and I thought, okay, I'm never going home again. This is where I'm stuck, and I'm going to have to deal with this guy who's an alcoholic, with this guy who's abusive to my mother, and this is my new life. I went from I was okay coming from a split home, had my routine, had my friends, life was good, to this. Now I have to accept this. So I decided I would be that guy who was going to rebel. I was going to be that rebellious. You guys are too busy to keep an eye on me. I'll just show you. And the things that I did in an attempt to rebel, to prove my points, how unhappy I was. If I'd ever been caught for it, I probably would never have been able to get through a police academy. I mean, some of the things were just cheeky, good fun type things. Other things were just way out there. But it was
I have some of those as well.
yeah. I mean, and it's and I tell you what, that's helped shape me, not just as a person, but in public service. Seeing other kids at that age, at that middle school age especially, and see them act out and do things that socially is not acceptable, criminal, whatever it might be, and think, okay, think back when you were that age and what you were going through, and you used acting that way as a crutch. What's going on in their life. Thankfully, I had a mother that when she was able to absorb what had happened. I mean, this was the perfect domestic violence type story.
Yeah.
Here's the honeymoon every day till I get you away from your support group, and now you know the real me. Well, the second she realizes that, she gets us out of that situation. I mean, I know stories and I've seen it with my own eyes where kids never make it out of those situations. So even though we moved from here and went there, and we were dealing with that for a while, seeing my mom take us out of that situation empowered me even more.
To realize that things actually could change.
Could change.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were stuck dealing with a mistake that she made, and that was going to now shape us. And watching her survive that, how she survived it, and what she did to make our lives better, I thank God that it resonated with me the way it did, and not in a way that gave me a continual crutch that, oh, now I got to move again, and I'm going back here, and I'm going back a changed person, and so now I'm just going to be, I'm going to be a victim of my circumstance, and let that shape me, because I know people have no choice of being victims of the circumstances that they're faced with.
Of course.
But there are a lot of them that we don't have to accept. We just flat don't.
And like that's something that I wish that, like, if I could get every single 17-year-old to listen to this, which will obviously never happen. It's just that, like, at least right now, the one thing that I would say, and I feel like you would agree based on your story, is that, like, you are not your parents.
Absolutely not.
You're like, you might be in a terrible situation, but you are not the situation that your parents have put you in.
Right.
And again, I'm not talking to the people who have had good parents like I did. I'm talking to the people who don't.
Right. And there are a lot of them out there that don't.
There certainly are in this area. And again, I'm not in any way even trying to disparage them. You know, we are all a sum of our circumstances, but it's how we react to them that makes the difference. And
That's
I just,
right.
you know, if you're listening to this and you're getting ready to go into life, don't accept what your parents have accepted for themselves, even if they're successful,
That's right.
even if they are doctors. If you have a dream for your life, you should chase it.
Absolutely.
And I feel like you would say the same thing to your kids.
Absolutely. And my kids have such weird personalities. And you
You're-
think
you're-
being brought up in the same home by the same parents and in the same environment, they would somehow be alike, and they're not. They're really not.
The only one of your kids that I know well is your daughter.
Yeah.
And the only reason for that is because she took one of our workshops. And I would say that she's fairly, I guess normal would be the word. Like she's
Yeah.
socially
Yeah.
equipped.
Sure.
Is,
Yeah.
is that the right way
Yeah.
to say it?
Perfect way to say it.
And your boys as well. Like I don't feel like any of them are quote unquote weirdos, but
I can say that about them.
but your kids are very different based on a very limited
They
experience.
are.
between
It's unbelievable that they can be in that same environment every day of their life and be so different.
Yeah, and like just first impressions from your oldest son.
Yes.
he seems like he is 3 times smarter than I am at any given.
He is absolutely 3 times smarter than I am.
and I don't mean that as in like he thinks he's smarter.
Nope.
No, he's smarter than me.
He is creepy.
100% smarter than me.
We call it creepy smart. It just is, and it always has been.
And then like your youngest, he's just so enthusiastic about everything.
Yeah, he'll be the frat boy that they're
Yeah.
able to dare to do anything.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I don't know the middle boy as well. He seems
Because he's very quiet, and
Yeah.
he's. If I could have had that kid's compassion at his age, I probably would have steered clear of a lot of the things that I didn't steer clear of. But he's a very compassionate kid for his age. To be 10 years old and have the heart that he's got for people,
yeah.
Except for his little brother, especially right now for whatever reason.
All right, so let's move into the finish of this. We're right at about an hour, real quick, and I'm gonna ask a few just like kind of point blank questions.
Okay.
Well, what's the best moment of your life?
Becoming a father
Yeah.
has to be, isn't that, again, just a cheeky response to a question like that. That is so cool.
Mm-hmm. So why?
I have to answer that when my wife's watching.
We can move on.
No, I think for me, I mean, looking at some of the things that I had to deal with growing up, Dad worked swing shift.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that my relationship growing up with him would have been any different if he didn't. If he worked a Monday through Friday day shift job, may very well been the same. I don't think he's a fantastic grandfather. We have a great relationship now. Don't know that he was quite ready to be a dad when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So it may have been the same regardless of what he did for a living. But didn't have much of a relationship with him. Definitely not the one that I wanted. Had a mom worked all the time and played both of those roles.
Yeah.
So I missed out a lot on having just a mom, because I learned how to sew, cook, change oil, and rotate tires on a car by the same lady. So when I got myself into a position to become a parent, I just knew everything that I wasn't going to be immediately.
Yeah.
I knew, and I was excited about the opportunity to show this person everything that I could be as their parent. It has not been easy, and don't think that there'll ever be a day where I can look back and say parenting is easy, regardless of how old your kids get. But becoming a parent, probably, as cheeky and obvious as that is, it's definitely probably one of the biggest highlights of my life.
Okay, so this is going to get a little personal here, and feel free to say none of your business, but what's the scariest moment of your entire life?
Probably I'll just say one of the scariest, because it certainly comes to mind when you ask that question, is deciding to go back to college.
Yeah.
Long after my career had been started and settled at the age of 33,
Wow.
in ministry school of all things.
Yeah, based on the little bit of background that you gave me, I
Can't believe Randy Smith's a preacher. And I didn't even scratch the surface on some of the things that I did to rebel. That was probably definitely as an adult, that was by far the scariest decision that I had to make, was to go and do that. Given having 4 kids and a mortgage to pay and bills to pay, and now all of a sudden we're going to throw tuition in the middle of this and take up weekends every day, every weekend for 2 straight years, being away from family to do that because I traveled for school.
Yeah.
That was pretty scary.
Let's talk about for a second what that actually is, though. What you decided midlife with people depending on you that you wanted to take a step to make things better or different. Better might not be the right word, but you felt that you could be of value to the world in a different way than you currently were, and you decided to go for it.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who feels stuck right now? Somebody who's like, whether they're stuck at 17 or stuck at 40, what would you say to somebody? Because you did make a change in your life late in the game.
You're not stuck. That's the first thing I would say. You are not stuck.
So if I say to you, well, you don't understand, I have so many bills and I have these many kids and I have like this, child support and blah, 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 blah. I am stuck. What would you say?
It probably would be 2 ways I would handle that. I would try to not be as preachy as I could be, because that right there just opens the door on a nice, beautiful sermon about faith.
Yeah.
But faith is a very real thing, very real in my life, and I could spell out examples on how it works. But if you're satisfied with being stuck, if that's you're going to put a period there. I am stuck because I've got bills, I've got this, can't do any better, can't go any further. Then you're not. Then you're not going to go any further than that. That's going to be your destiny right there where you're stuck. Had a guy tell me one time that if you show me your checkbook, I will tell you the things that are important to your life. And you think about things that you truly want to accomplish. If you love Walt Disney and you want to go to Disney World and you make minimum wage, it may take you a little while, but you will go to Disney World.
Absolutely.
Nothing will get in your way, and you will make that happen. If you want to buy a BMW and you make minimum wage, nothing will get in your way, because you'll find a way to save the money. It may take you 10 years, but you'll have it.
Yeah.
The exact same thing is true about the goals that you set for yourself.
Yeah.
If it's going back to school, if it's going into the military, if it's working on a promotion, if it's getting yourself out of your current situation, bad relationship, trying to do better than your parents, whatever's motivated you to think, okay, I'm stuck, but I need to do better. If you've got that thought in your head, if you truly want to pull it off, you are the only thing stopping yourself.
I believe that.
I do too, and I don't think I've never had trouble believing that.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Why do you think that, this is going to sound elitist, but why do you think that you and I get that so easily, where other people think of that as like the biggest mountain that's ever, because I know the vast majority, and I'm thinking like 90% of the world.
I believe it would be that high.
I don't even necessarily think this is a flaw. I think it's the way that we are as human beings. Why do you think that the majority of people think it's so impossible to change their own circumstances?
Because I think most people probably base their ability. They base their abilities. They base what they think the outcomes are going to be. They base those types of things on what they've watched other people do. So-and-so failed, so I certainly can't accomplish it. This didn't work for him, so there's no way I can pull that off. And it's it. Because if it's going to be challenging, it's going to be hard, and I watch this person go through it and fail, so I don't want to fail. I think that's part of it. That can't be all of it. But I have just never felt like I was a terrible athlete in high school and still played football. Terrible.
I was a terrible athlete in high school, didn't play football, but that's probably a good thing.
I mean, like I would hide my asthma inhaler. I would hide it in my school shoes when I put my cleats on, so nobody would see that I had an inhaler. Because I just wanted to do it. And was terrible at it and still did it. I don't know that there's probably a perfect formula to it, and it's frustrating for me when folks say, "Well, you don't understand. I didn't come from a good home." Okay, what's a good home? I can tell you people that grew up in homes where the parents were home every night, made 6 figures, they got what they wanted and still miserable, still found some misery in their circumstances, and folks that didn't have anything and could still say they were miserable. So you have 2 totally different worlds, but both of them are miserable. If you decide to say this is it for me, it's going to be it for you. I can't think of a time in my life where I felt like that was that was the case.
So,
Like
so,
I've put a period on it and can't.
so would you say that that is actually? Let me give an example from my life. So, when I was 18, 19, I knew that I was interested in photography, but I always assumed that start the whole starving artist mentality that you would never actually make anything. And and everyone reinforced that belief. As a photographer, you're never going to do well. You're never going to do well as an artist. And fast forward 10 years, I'm not as much of the artist. I'm more in the administrative role, and my wonderful wife is the creative genius between the two of us. But the point is that we've made it work. And I didn't listen to all of those people because I knew that more was possible. The reason that I knew more was possible is because a couple people took the time out of their lives to encourage me and tell me, listen, just because this is what you think doesn't mean that's the way things are. So I want you to pretend right now, and it's not even pretending because it's real. I want you to pretend that you're that person for somebody that's listening to this.
Okay.
What would you say to somebody who's telling you, my parents are poor. I'm gonna be poor. I only have a very few choices in life. Like, what would you say?
I can tell you what worked for me from those folks that were willing to do that. And it's great having a supportive parent or two supportive parents, or grandparents, or whoever's tasked with raising you as you grow up. But when you have somebody that's not part of your family, that's in your life every day, school teacher, minister, youth group leader, next door neighbor, somebody who really doesn't have any stock in your existence, they're just part of your life, someone like that. When you find someone like that who's taken a moment to just stop you and let you know that they're concerned about how the decisions you make or what direction you're in, and they give you a little bit of encouragement, is fantastic. And I'm very fortunate to have had several people in my life that have done that, on top of having one of the coolest moms out there. But coddling never worked for me. So even all those folks that said encouraging things to me, I didn't want someone to pat me on the back and tell me that tomorrow was going to be a better day. I didn't want that. They didn't have any idea what my tomorrow was going to look like. Don't tell me that. I always appreciated more straightforward, motivational speaker type, get off your hind end and go get it done. Quit sitting there feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah, the football coach speak.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is another reason why working with Mike's great. We call Tim Dad and call Mike Coach because of their roles are perfect for that.
Yeah.
And so that's how
I can see Tim being dad.
he's dad.
My dad's name is Tim.
We call Mike and I both call him Dad. Probably if he wasn't in there, we would things would be different.
Yeah,
He
but
keeps
anyway.
us grounded. Anyway.
Anyway.
But I like that straightforward advice. I don't want someone to coddle me. I don't want you to help me feel sorry for myself. I don't want you to tell me it's going to be okay. I don't want you to give me that. I want straightforward, motivate me, open my eyes, shock factor, tell me to get off my hind end and quit feeling sorry for myself. And that's probably more where I line up. If I'm going to reach out and try to encourage somebody, it's going to be from that perspective. If they say, you don't understand, my parents are poor, there's nothing I can do, this is where my life's stuck. For an outsider not knowing where my heart's at, they might think I'm sounding a little harsh whenever I respond to that, because my response would probably be something like, well, it sounds like you've determined your destiny. Have fun trying to dig yourself out of that gutter in 20 years.
Yeah.
Get out of the gutter while you're still young enough to do something about it, while you still have dreams. Don't let somebody define years of your life that you haven't even seen yet. I probably will never coddle somebody because it didn't work for me.
And just to expound on what you just said there, like if you are 17 and you feel that way,
Yeah.
it's never, ever for the rest of your life going to be easier than it is right now to
That's
climb
right.
out of what you're in.
That's right.
Fast forward 20 years with 3 kids and 2 mortgages and an addiction later.
Now you're stuck.
Now
it's scary.
Then it's scary. Right now, it's not scary.
Right.
But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
And I think kids, I say kids, 17, you're pushing adulthood. You're almost old enough to vote and going to start in college. For those folks, if you've got yourself in that mindset that it's never going to be any better than what you've got right now, probably if you broke my life down, looked at the statistics from the divorced home, from a mom that had to work 3 jobs just so we could be poor, worked hard just so we could be poor, to not having a good, stable, consistent father figure in my life. Statistically, I should be in prison.
Yeah, you're right. Actually,
I should be in prison.
based on every sociology book I've ever
That's
read,
right.
you should be in prison.
And it would have been very easy. I've told my daughter, who's like we've talked about, that's approaching college age. I've told her several times that I had the best crutch. I had the crutch that every school guidance counselor would have agreed with, that juvenile court judges would have agreed with, that a defense attorney probably could have convinced a common pleas judge that, well, this is why Mr. Smith is the way he is. Mm-hmm. I could have. And some folks, when they get stuck in that, they're just satisfied with it. This is where I'm at. Mm-hmm. It absolutely does not have to be that way. And it's very difficult for me not to get frustrated when I see potential, especially in a teenager. Mm-hmm. And through my daughter's friends or some of the ministries that I'm involved in, plus my past lives of working in social work and law enforcement. There's a lot of things about some of today's high school kids that I know. I know a lot about their home life or their parents, or some of them whose parents are addicts. Nobody else knows that, but I do. Or I know so-and-so's dad's in prison.
You wouldn't believe the things that we know about some of our clients.
I'm sure once they get downstairs on your couch and they're doing a consult, they feel like they're in therapy. I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
I can believe that. Yeah, we're comfortable down there.
I think there's a common perception that we only deal with rich kids. That's not true.
Yeah.
In fact, and I'm going to say this out loud, publicly, if there's somebody out there that loves what we do, regardless of if they have the money to pay, we're going to work with them. And
I believe you would.
And we get to learn from those people, and it's true. There are some situations out there that I couldn't even dream of, but
I think it's why you were talking earlier about me asking you early on, what can I do to help? Mm-hmm. If I would have met you guys for the first time and had the opinion that you were superficial, you were in it for money, you were going to set up camp, take the community for what you could, and then move on.
Yeah,
probably wouldn't have been that forthcoming with how can I help you? How can I be there for you?
Under that mindset, I should have left about 5 years ago.
Yeah. But the idea that I do believe that you guys have a passion for the people that you, not only the people that you work with, but just the people that are out there, people that might be listening to this or that drive past your home and you don't know them. You just are genuinely concerned for them and this community that they live in. And I think there are more people out there like that. I think there are people in this, it's obvious there are people in our community that desire for it to be better, to provide an encouraged environment for the students. Maybe we just don't know how to get organized and rally. Mm-hmm. And to let those kids know who don't feel like they have that support from home, that there is a whole community of people that are genuinely concerned that you make it, even if that means to tell you to get up off your hind end, focus on what's important to you, and go out there and achieve it. Anything that's worth it is worth fighting for. That sounds like another cliche, but it's true. I would have, looking at my life and the struggles that I've had to face, even as an adult, I think I'm blessed by the struggles. Yes, it gives you an appreciation of what you have or what you think you've been able to accomplish. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad nothing was handed to me. I'm thankful for struggling, and I don't even consider myself to be that successful. No matter what I'm doing for a living, whether I'm doing this the rest of my life or whether I got to find something else to do in 4 years, I will make it something to prove that I can be successful at it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's okay to be motivated by those people that think you can't do it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of especially teenagers are faced with that today. They feel like they've got people in their lives that want them to fail. And why would you want to give them that satisfaction?
Yeah.
Go prove to them that you can. I had a teacher once that assigned a research project to us. It was English, and I hated English. I even in grade school, I hated spelling. I love to read, but I did not like to write. I just didn't. I love to research history, but I didn't like to write reports about it. And we had to do a research paper on an Appalachian topic. So I picked the Hatfield and McCoys.
Yeah.
Very Appalachian, very good story. Loved the Hatfield McCoys.
By the
And
way,
it was
if you guys don't know this, that was only a couple hours from where we are right now, right?
right,
Like, it was
absolutely.
like
And when I lived in Kentucky for those 2 years, we were even closer.
yeah.
And it's like I watched the documentary that was on the History Channel, and I was making a joke to my wife. I'm like, I knew some of those people. I lived right down the holler from them.
By the way, there's a very small likelihood that I'm actually related to one of those, and I'll tell you about that later. But yeah, go ahead.
That's interesting.
My family is from northeastern Kentucky.
That's cool. Yeah, oh yeah. There's certainly there's a relationship in there someplace. I thought it was a great assignment. I thought, cool, I'll do the Hatfield McCoys. And, of course, we'd already lived in Kentucky at that time, and it was a big part of the heritage down there. So I had a lot of knowledge of it. I could not wait to write this research paper because I was going to shine. It was going to be a great grade. I was going to be able to show off, brag to my friends. And it was like given to us 3 or 4 months in advance. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of time to work on it.
Yeah.
And get the paper done. Of course, that was way before widespread internet access. Mm-hmm. So you had to actually go to these places called libraries.
Yeah.
And you had to know how to use a card index and find books.
By the way, I'm going to go ahead and brag about this. If somebody's listening to this from 30 years ago, I am like probably the oldest person in the world that still had to do that.
That's
so
cool.
Like you're
Yeah,
talking to
but
me like I never had to do that. I did. I am the last generation to grow up without the internet.
I feel closer to you somehow.
Yeah,
That's good.
We're bonding. But
That's good.
I didn't have the internet till I was about 15.
That's cool.
So yeah.
Character build. Talk about
So
character building.
I know the Dewey Decimal System. And all
Good
of that
for
stuff.
you.
But
That
anyway.
definitely brings you up a notch in my book.
Go ahead.
I remember, like, we had to do bibliographies. You had to write down if you used an article, if you used a magazine, if a book, whatever. Of course, for us, our Google was the encyclopedia. And we had to list out all of our resources. And the teacher, who I won't name, we knew she would follow up and look and see if we were plagiarizing somebody else's work in our research papers. So I turned in what was probably the best at least research paper, even in college, that I had to ever turn in my life. I was very proud of my work. And got those papers back. Certainly was expecting an A, at least an A. And I had a C on it. And I thought, wow. I mean, you're talking 20-some pages long. Worked on it for months, and I'm flipping through each page, trying to find red marks, trying to find what brought my score down to a C.
Yeah.
Got to the end, the very last page, and it said this. It said, a written report, punctuation, grammar, and spelling all great. I decided to give you a C because there is no way you performed this work on your own. You used words like indeed, and I don't feel like that's part of your vocabulary. And that came from a teacher right in the middle of my high school career. And I was absolutely devastated by that, not to obviously the work that went into it and the time and the energy that went into that, but I'm thinking, man, this lady doesn't care if I fail or succeed at all. If she's telling me I'm not smart enough to use the word indeed, and she's going to cut my score down for no other reason other than I used a word that I'm not smart enough to use. And that could have easily been a defining moment. Here's an educator telling me I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Refused to give her the satisfaction to watch me fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that that's the best form of motivation for everybody. Some folks need that pat on the back and that reassurance and that constant reinforcement. I wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
I needed somebody to tell me to get up off my hind end before they put a boot in it. I need somebody to motivate me to do better and be better. And I look back on that and I think I'm blessed that I've been able to carry that into my careers, the jobs that I've done. My whole mission in my current job is to make sure when I leave there, I've set the bar to a standard that the next round of folks that come through there can't take us back where we were before. Mm-hmm. It's a new standard. You come in here every day, you work 40 hours a week, regardless of what the revised code says, and just create a whole new environment and not let it go backwards. And I try to do the same thing with my kids. Mm-hmm. And I think this is what you're doing is great. And I hope that whether it's from your conversation with me or somebody in the future, that somebody who doesn't have that reinforcement or that positive influence in their life listens to this and truly believes those cheeky one-liners that they can do so much better than they think they can. Do not be a victim. Don't give the world the benefit of eating you alive. You do stand a fighting chance.
It's so interesting because you have such a different upbringing than I do. I grew up. I'm not ashamed of it. I grew up upper middle class. My parents are divorced, but they didn't divorce till after I was grown. But it's interesting that like the some of the things that you say, like talking about the teachers, that I had somebody that I looked up to very much, and I'm not obviously not going to say the name, but she essentially brought me in, and I think I mentioned a second ago that actually that's probably more like an hour ago that a lot of people essentially did not believe in me, and that I had a fairly severe learning disability, and she just brought me into her office at one point and said, "Brandon, it's time to start talking about the military because I don't think you're going to do well in the private sector."
Yeah.
Now, first of all, I take offense to that because I don't think that we should be disparaging our
Right.
military.
Yeah.
Like screw that, right?
Yeah.
Second of all, what was she trying to accomplish there? But anyway, I feel like I my whole life, at least in some way, has been proving her wrong. Fast forward several
That's cool.
years, I had a stepfather that told me it was time to stop playing business owner and get a real job.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing. Before that, I can say this now. I was playing business owner, but as soon as he said that, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I
have fun proving you wrong.
I did, and proving him wrong became my life's mission.
That's cool.
And I say this publicly. Daryl Huck, as much as we did not get along, I am thankful for what you said to me, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to prove you wrong, because I have.
That's cool.
I have, and I think even though we never got along, I think even he would agree with that. And I'm not trying to brag on myself, but like if you have those influences in your life, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your guidance counselor or teacher or stepdad or whatever, just take for a second and think about the fact that those people are put in your life for a reason. Whether or not you believe in a higher power, I think that those people are there for a reason. And if their only reason is for you to prove them wrong, then so be it. But
absolutely,
I have taken those as gasoline. We're getting ready to finish up here. But in addition to this interview, if you want to call it that, with Randy has also agreed to essentially write a letter to all of you out there. The intended purpose, of course, is to the 17-year-old getting ready to enter adulthood, but it's more broad than that. It's anybody who is in this area or not that is just kind of wondering how they get from where they are to where they want to be, and he has graciously agreed to do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to compile those letters essentially into a book at the end of all of this project. And we're actually going to give that away for free to all of the graduating seniors, and it'll be available elsewhere for everybody else. But I think that this project is very important. I think that it's not. You're never going to change your life just by doing the same things that you are. It does take people who do believe in you and people like you.
Sure. Yeah.
And you guys believed in us. And I have to say that the whatever small measure of success that Raina and I do have is at least in part because of you and you believing in us. And you might not even think that.
No, not even the slightest, but I appreciate that.
It's true. And like, I appreciate you doing this for us, and I appreciate you doing this for all the other people that you've never even met. Before we finish up, though, I'm just going to ask you to, for a second, pretend like I am your child. Okay, and like we've talked a lot about on like high level stuff about like this is how you should think essentially. I want to strip all of that out for a second, and I want to talk purely pragmatically. I want you to essentially give me that dad speech real quick. And I want you to do it assuming that you're never going to see me again.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Well, let me start by saying from now on, then, if I'm going to give you the dad speech, you can never wear your hat crooked.
All right.
It's got to be straight.
All right. How about backwards?
That's good. Backwards is good. We need to teach you how to shape the bill into a trucker hat. You can't keep them flat. Okay.
Before we finish up, though, I'm just gonna ask
Now he
you
has his hat on
for a
backwards, and
second,
I
pretend like I
don't
am your
recognize him. I don't
child.
think I've ever seen you with your hat on backwards.
And like
Just wait till you see me
we've
with,
talked
like,
a
my
lot
hair
about
actually
like,
done.
high level stuff.
That's
about,
possible.
like,
It
this
happens.
what
Is there
this is
pictures
how
to
you
prove
should-
that?
Yesterday.
Essentially,
Wow.
I want to strip all of that out.
Okay,
for a
you're
second,
making
and I
making
wanna
this
talk
making
purely
this funny. It's gonna be hard for me
pragmatically.
to get serious.
I
Okay,
want
so
you to
you're,
essentially give me that dad
from the perspective that
speech
you're my kid,
real
I'm going to
quick.
give you
And I want you to
some type
do
of
it
a speech
assuming that
on,
you're never going to see me again.
whatever. I want to give it on it with the idea that this is it. I'm sending you out into the world, and I'm
This is
never
it.
going to see you again.
This is it.
Probably the first thing I would say to you, that any time in your life from this moment forward that you feel like that you're getting ready to make an excuse for something, I want you to vision me looking you dead in the eye and telling you that I'm not buying it. Telling you that if you're going to come up with an excuse on the why you can't do something, if you're going to if you're going to add the word "but Dad" that I can't, it's not possible. Come up with any type of an excuse on why you can't be successful. I want you to imagine me giving you the dad stank eye. And I want you to imagine me giving that to you for one reason, because I know better. And I think probably the biggest problem with people in your generation, assuming that you're in that 17-year-old
I am.
generation.
I'm in the same generation as your kids. Think
Okay.
about that for a second.
I know. That's the third time at least that I can recall since we've been speaking that somehow age has been referenced. If you think you're not good enough, you're not going to be. If you believe that you are going to fail, you are going to fail. If you think you can't get out of your current situation, you will never get out of your current situation. If you allow somebody else to define your destiny, they will define your destiny. If you let someone set goals for you, they will set those goals for you. And if you're satisfied with mediocrity, you will always be satisfied with mediocrity. I go back to that Rocky quote because it is such a true taste of reality. Even to say that you think you have it bad, somebody can always have it worse. It's very true. We get ourselves in a position that if we're just uncomfortable, if we're just mildly uncomfortable with our surroundings, or we feel like somebody is forcing us out of our comfort zone, that all hell is breaking loose in our world is never going to be the same. When in reality, people do have it worse than you. There may only be one person out there that has it worse than you, but people do. And if you're going to let yourself be satisfied with never doing better, never achieving great things, then you'll never be better and you'll never achieve anything great. Do not sell yourself short and let somebody else define what it is that you can be or how far you can go. If you do that, you're weak, and I didn't raise you to be weak. I didn't bring you into this world and give you life lessons to expect you to ever be weak. And I think that while sometimes weakness is a good thing, sometimes it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to be weak. Never as it relates to life decisions and taking yourself where you want to be. I feel like that I've had people in my life that have guided me and encouraged me in that way to motivate me to get off my hind end and quit making excuses. We're just a people that love excuses. And I would probably tell you, if you were my son, that I hope that every time you come up with the idea that you're going to make an excuse on why you can't do something that you truly desire doing, that that you develop a migraine, that you can't sleep, that you can't rest until you get that out of your head. You know, it's awful. I see friends. That's part of what my speech would sound like to you, I guess, if I was sending you off into the world. But I see kids my daughter's age and talk to them, and they have that in their mind that this is it for them. And I scratch my head and I think, when you're okay with that? You're okay with that. I mean, you're looking, and why is it that we feel like the first, especially our high school years, those 4 years of high school, like that's where life's going to stop? That if we haven't achieved some level of greatness by the time we get our diploma, life is over. That's not even scratching the surface of what life looks like.
Yeah.
And you know, parents are probably telling kids that may listen to this that same thing. Teachers are. Somebody in their life is telling them, life is tough. You need to be ready for it, that kind of thing. And we think, nah, this is easy. I got that. And then they get hit with life and they can't handle it. Prove them wrong. I'm motivated by proving people wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
too.
what I hope that, you know, my kids know there's no reason I should have been elected county commissioner. You look at what politics are locally, nationally, on a state level, it comes with money and popularity, the ability to get your name out there and be that person.
By the way, I'm going to interject here for a second. Not only did he win re-election, he won by a landslide.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
That's, again, we have great people in this community.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
There was no reason for me to ever be able to be a police officer. Nothing about my life said that was ever going to work out. Nothing. Not my background, not the things that I got involved in as a student. Nothing. Still did it. Proved a lot of folks wrong. No reason in the world I should have been able to get in politics and be successful. No money, no political background. I'm the first politician in my family that I know of on both sides as far back as I can go. No reason for that to happen. Had a great time proving people wrong.
Mm-hmm.
When folks found out I was going to do it, and I got a lot of, are you crazy? There's no way you could pull that off. Hear rumors about why would he even think that he had that, it was even possible for him to do it. I'm going to do it just to prove you wrong. I'm going to do it because you said I couldn't. And I hope kids that are approaching the first big step in life and getting out of high school, that's the first big step, followed by many, many more. That I just did another presidential, many, it's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
There's so many things about our language now that take on a whole different meaning when you say them.
It's true.
This is just the step, and I hope there's more kids out there that can find, I don't know, more satisfaction in proving people wrong. If you find yourself in that boat where people are telling you can't, be motivated by that. Go prove them to them that you can. And don't be afraid to remind them that you did it in spite of what they thought.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't like your hat on backwards either. I turn it back around.
All right, guys. If I were to recap what Randy has said over the last hour, it's just that, like, you know, regardless of what your circumstances are, and some of them are significantly worse than others, you're not stuck. First of all,
Right.
You have to, first of all, believe that life can be a better tomorrow than it was today.
Yep.
And most importantly, you know, the first step is belief. The first step you have to acknowledge that. But then beyond that, you have to take steps.
Yes.
So one last question, then we'll be gone.
Okay.
I'm in a really crappy situation.
Okay.
All right. What's the first thing that I should do?
Crappy situation as a teenager.
Mm-hmm. Or as an adult, doesn't matter. But like, you know, I am a victim of my circumstances, and I have somehow woken up in the last hour here.
Okay.
What is the first thing that I should do? Like, if they're asking me, I would say get your hands on whatever books that you can and start reading.
Sure.
For me, and like, I realize that's not the answer for everybody. What is your answer to that question? What's the very first step?
If I found myself in that situation and I snapped out of it and I had a moment of clarity, the first thing I would probably do, or that I would suggest somebody do, is find somebody in it. And it doesn't have to be that go-to friend. You need to find somebody that can line up with where you're at. Somebody that you got to have somebody that you can depend on. You've got to have somebody that, well, here goes the preacher. You know, Scripture says iron sharpens iron. And that does mean definitely a significant thing in the faith world. But think about it in your personal life. Find somebody that you can confide in to help keep you motivated. Probably not going to do a great job going to a gym and trying to stay motivated, working out by yourself.
Yeah.
You got somebody in there with you doing it, makes it a whole lot easier.
It's interesting that we're talking about that, because our wives are sitting right there, and they are in shape.
Yeah, I didn't say that from personal experience. That's just what I heard, that it helps if you have somebody that you're working out with. That would be what I would do. If you have that moment of clarity and you're ready to get out of that situation that you're in, to no longer be a victim of your circumstance.
Just find someone.
Find somebody that you know will be that supportive person. I don't want you to find somebody that you can use as a crutch, somebody that's going to cater to you or baby you. Find somebody that's going to be that motivator and be that person that you can lean on. Because probably if you found yourself in a situation where you are a victim of your circumstance, part of that has to do with you probably have trusted people that have let you down. You have come through a bad relationship. Probably your circumstances involved people, and they have done something to help or encourage you into the rut that you're in. So it's not going to be easy to find somebody. But for me, I would need somebody. I'd have to, once I snapped out of it, I'd have to go find that person that could keep me accountable, keep me motivated.
Mm-hmm. And like if you're listening to this and you think that, okay, that sounds easy enough to say, but that finding someone is harder. It's actually not. I can say this beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are more people out there that care about you than you think.
As soon as you started to say that, those exact words crossed my mind. There absolutely are. Don't care who you are, what school district, what area of the county. You may live in Reedsville and it be somebody in Pomeroy, but somebody in Pomeroy cares about you.
You may live in Reedsville and it's somebody in Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
We live thanks to the miracle of the internet and social media. We live in a very small world now.
Yeah.
There are people out there, and it's not even going to be that hard to find them.
No, way more people out there that care about your success than want to see you fail.
And
Absolutely believe that.
The reason I know that is because I care.
I care.
You care.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say that of the people that I associate with, the vast majority of them would also be willing to be that person.
Yeah.
You know, not necessarily to hold your hand, not necessarily to even loan you money. That's not what this is about. But there are people out there that care about you and that are willing to be that person.
I'm going to be quoting Rocky movie lines to you if you call me. But they're absolutely right. There are more people that care than don't.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really appreciate the last 90 minutes that we have spent on this. I think that a lot of people are going to take an immense amount of value from this, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your letter, and I'm sure everybody else is.
I've actually started on that. It's when I read the idea behind it, it seemed like that'd be pretty easy to do, but really it's not.
I haven't written mine yet.
I actually had really good, had great big first paragraph, and then I shrunk it back to 3 sentences. I'm like, that's not what I want to say.
Yeah.
But this is a great idea, Brandon. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share.
Anything else?
No.
All right, everybody. Randy Smith. When I first met him, I called him Commissioner Gordon.
Yep.
Because I'm a Batman freak. Meigs County Commissioner, local minister, and overall superhero. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that.